This is Stinchfield. Here's your host, Grant Stinchfield.
All right, it is so great to be along with you all today. Yes, I'm Grant Stinchfield. I want to bring in Dr. Peter McCullough with the Wellness Company. Doc, it's great to see you.
Great to see you.
All right, so let's first off talk about this chart that I saw that deaths after vaccination literally skyrocket at the year 2020 into 2021. It can't be a coincidence.
No, these data, I think, are so visually compelling. Half the nation takes a vaccine once a year, for decades. Half the nation takes a flu shot. Of course, all the kids are taking shots as part of their routine. And the number of deaths that have ever been reported to the CDC data center per year is about 150. So that's the whole nation. There can be weird allergic reactions or other things. So that's the 150 is the baseline. The vaccines are introduced in December of 2020. And in 2021, Grant, we're talking thousands of deaths are reported into this system. I mean, this is astounding. And so the worst year for death was 2021 for vaccines of all time. And that's the year that if people were going to take a COVID shot, they took it in 2021. Then 2022, it's less. 2023 is less, and 4. And now in 2026, it's almost getting back to the baseline. It's not at 150, but it's still up there, partly because of some late deaths that occur after vaccination, and partly because some people are still taking boosters. In some places, they're forced to take them, Grant.
All right, I would think that the fact that it spikes in 2021 as they roll out this vaccination and so many Americans take it. What was the proportion of people who took the vax versus didn't?
USA Facts has the best data because they use the tabular CDC data. So the number is 81% of Americans took one or more shots. 70% took 2 shots.
Okay.
Now, after that, the number of people took boosters, that number is not clear. The CDC quit tracking that. They now just do a phone survey about what people's viewpoints are on this. So the CDC is not reporting to us who exactly is taking boosters now. So I did a Twitter poll a few months ago. Now, granted, this is biased of people who follow me, Grant, but I have over 1 million followers. And the answer is less than 1% of Americans are taking boosters now.
Yeah, now I would say because of the people who follow you and your background, you're going to get a huge percentage of people who are certainly not taking boosters. It's interesting to me, though, that they stopped tracking who was taking the boosters. I don't think that's any innocent little, oversight. I think that's all by design. Do you?
Well, sure. If they reported the data and hardly anybody's taking boosters, people would say, well, geez, why should I take one? So it's going to lead to vaccine hesitancy. Now they use what's called the NIS, the National Immunization Survey. This is a robocall. Grant, do you ever get robocalls on your cell phone there in Dallas?
Of course.
I mean, come on. Who answers these robocalls? So if you answer a robocall from the CDC and you go through all these questions and they say, well, do you think you're likely to take a COVID shot? You say, well, yeah. Well, according to those robocall data about, attitudes towards taking a shot, the CDC is calling it at 15% booster rate. But it's not the real rate of people taking these shots.
Do you think another side of this is not only do they not want people to know that people aren't getting the boosters, there's like 4 double negatives in there, I apologize about that, but there's also the aspect that I don't know if they want to have the evidence that possibly the boosters are doing bad things as well. If they don't track who's getting them, how are you going to tie it to negative effects?
Yeah, good point. I think most of it, though, is just they don't want to contribute to vaccine hesitancy. But another story broke, Grant. I don't know if you saw this, but I believe it's Pfizer and BioNTech was doing a booster randomized trial, which they're supposed to do. And you know what? They shut it down because no one wanted to sign up for the trial.
Wow. It's utterly amazing. Now, back to this chart that spikes in 2021, 2022, then it starts to decrease again. I think adding to the evidence that it was the COVID vax is clearly the spike in 2021 when it comes out. And the fact that you have these numbers that so many people stopped taking it and then all of a sudden the numbers dramatically decreased. That can't be ignored.
No, it can't. It's either people quit taking the shots, which we know for sure happened, or the other thing is maybe the boosters became far safer. I mean, that's the other, or both happened. Remember the very first spike protein, and Grant, when you and I got COVID early, the spike protein on the virus was the most brutal type. If you were going to really get sick from COVID, it was in 2020, 2021. After that time, the virus mutated to Omicron variant, for instance, and all the boosters that followed the Omicron, that's a much more mild version of the spike.
Right.
So, sure. Are the vaccines safer today? Probably are. Are people taking them? Essentially, no.
All right. So let's break this down. So when you say that they are probably safer today, do they still have this spike protein in them?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so
Pfizer and Moderna is still the messenger RNA for the spike. And then Novavax in the United States is actually the spike itself, 5 micrograms.
All right, so how does it get safer if they're still using that to cause so much problems?
Because the spike itself is less dangerous.
Oh, I see. So, I mean, I'm going to get too deep in the weeds here. But what are they doing? Are they taking the spike from a live virus?
Well, they genetically model the spike on the live virus, and then they use computers to have Pfizer Moderna code for that new form of the spike. So we've been through the different variants, and the variants are getting milder. So it makes sense that the vaccines are also less dangerous. But far and away, fewer people are taking them. That's the reason why there's fewer deaths.
I'm sure. And then is it they've gotten better at genetically engineering this spike? I mean, do you think secretly in some basement these scientists knew they had screwed up really bad on the first one and says, we better get our act together?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good question. Now, they may have cleaned up the issue of contaminants. We don't know, but the initial versions were contaminated with DNA fragments for a cancer promoter called SV40. There were DNA fragments for spike. And maybe for quality and impurity, they've been improved. But, they've never performed any inspections. The FDA always performs inspections of products, and they make publicly available inspection reports. None of that's been done for the COVID vaccines.
And yet, if you were to go out there and try to produce supplements, you've got the food FDA, and you got all this stuff that you have to meet. And here they are, you're injecting something into your body, and they're not doing inspections.
It's the biggest lapse of government regulatory oversight in history. And the current FDA crew is no better. They've turned a blind eye to vaccine safety.
All right. Why do you think that is? Because here we're supposed to have JFK, our big hero, RFK, our big hero in all of this. Why are they still, I don't know, call it lackadaisical or drop the ball on this?
I think they've been told to, don't touch the vaccines. I think they've been told, listen, it's a political hot potato. Don't touch the vaccines, work on food dye or work on fluoride in the water or, microplastics or something else. But don't touch this really big problem, which is a vaccine safety problem.
Why do you think that is? Is it out of embarrassment? Is it out of protecting themselves legally? All of the above?
Well, we have this rift, Grant, between the medical freedom community, you and I are in that community, and the wellness company, and then you have the medical orthodoxy. The vaccine safety and all the concerns is among the medical freedom community. The medical orthodoxy, they still, are carrying the party line that these are safe and effective. So you go into Harvard or Michigan or any major institution, they're going to tell you, listen, these vaccines are safe and effective, and they're not.
It's interesting. I mean, this is somewhat on a different topic, but I'd love to get your opinion on this because you're let's just say you were not always in this world of conservative talk and medical freedom and all of that. You're somewhat new as of, am I safe to say that, Doc?
Well, listen, I testified in Congress 2007, Grant. That's nearly 20 years ago.
Wow.
In the Congressional Oversight Panel. But, I am a traditional doctor, and what I've been known for, at the Wellness Company and McCullough Foundation is I call the balls and the strikes and haven't been wrong on anything. So, yeah, I'm not afraid to take a view based on, what I believe to be true.
Here's why I think your opinion's important on this. There's a lot of talk about a split in MAGA and all this stuff. I think one of the things that MAGA did or President Trump did when he in many respects, embraced the medical freedom community by embracing RFK Jr. in this periphery. I know President Trump was behind the shot. I think he looks at that as a mistake now and all of that. But so we had this MAHA movement, the Make America Healthy Again movement. And we got a lot of, I don't know, I'm just going to say it, freedom-loving hippie moms. I don't even know if the hippie moms were really all that freedom-loving. I think they got lumped into the freedom-loving, and they said, oh, wait a second. I was a Democrat, but, boy, the Democrats want to push all this stuff. And then now it becomes even more crazy, like the war in Iran and all this stuff. And so the hippie-loving freedom moms are like, well, wait a second. I was always a no-war person. And now there's all this confusion that nobody quite knows where to fall from this new group of Make America Great Again conservatives, and especially the MAHA movement, where I think a lot of them may not have been Republicans all along, but saw that Democrats wanted to push this stuff. And now there's this kind of wide confusion.
Right. Well, don't forget, there are a few things that will always divide people. One is a big crisis at home. So it's clearly the COVID pandemic divided us. It did. It just happens. And the other thing that divides people is war. And people have different views on war. I can tell you as a doctor, people always ask me, well, what side are you on? I said, traditionally, doctors don't choose sides. If you look at the history of doctors and medics in war, we actually take care of people shot and injured and dead on both sides.
Yes.
That happened in the French and Indian War and the Revolutionary War, Civil War. So the bottom line is, doctors, we just traditionally, we don't take sides. And of course, remember, there's a vein of people out there who are libertarian. And, probably the one in Congress, is Rand Paul. Yeah. And libertarians, to their core, Grant, they're anti-war. So.
Do you think these MAHA moms with the raw milk and no fluoride in the water, and of course they're on my side with this no vaccine and choices, do you think they're more libertarian?
Yeah, I think it's likely that they would tend to be libertarian or pacifists, and they could say, "Hey, listen, there's got to be better ways to settle conflicts." A book that influenced me a long time ago. It's called Collapse, and it was written by Jared Diamond. He wrote Guns, Germs, Knives, and Steel. But he wrote about civilizations that have endured for thousands of years, and a lot of them then are in East Asia, Polynesia. There's one civilization in Polynesia that's been around for 6,000 years, and he said that the unique characteristic of it, sure, they have conflicts and other tribes and they said, but they just talk out their problems. They talk incessantly. They just talk until they're exhausted, and finally they just talk out their problems. But they don't try to kill each other. So. Yeah. So it is unique, and remember, war, particularly when you're the attacker, like we're not being attacked right now, but we're the attacker, United States and Israel. War tends to divide when you're the attacker, but when you're being attacked, like if we were being attacked, Grant, it tends to unify. Every time it's because as soon as you get your house blown up in your car and you lose your family member, believe me. You don't turn on your government. You actually unify as a people.
Look, my argument would be that we were really attacked first with all these roadside bombs and this great sponsor of terror. But it's harder to see that if you're not totally involved and see that what we're really doing is responding, not to argue this whole idea of war. I would just wish that people – I always love dissent. You can have dissent. We need discussion on both sides. I need to hear the other side. But once we're in it, you got to support our military. You got to pray for President Trump that he makes right decisions and good. And you don't just go hog wild on the other side. I give the example when Barack Obama took out Osama bin Laden. I was so happy that he did it. I was proud that he made the call. And I prayed for him that he would make the right call. I did not wish for his failure. And I just can't believe there are people on the other side that wish for our failure, even if you disagree with something. I don't wish for any. I actually didn't even wish for Joe Biden's failure. I thought the country would be better off if he didn't fail. But
the example of that, Grant, was when the serviceman was down, when he was behind enemy lines. somebody, and I think Trump said this yesterday, somebody leaked the information to the press.
Yeah.
Well, that's a disaster, right? Because you don't want to tell the enemy one of your guys is behind enemy lines, right? So, I mean, that's an example of essentially sabotage.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. In military times, you don't want to do things that obviously, work to infringe or impair, and put your fellow citizens and your military servicemen in peril. But at the same time, there is a role for historians and just even recent history. Iran-Iraq war ran from 1980 to 1988. Mm-hmm. So people in Tehran, they lived out of bomb shelters for 8 years. Yeah. They know all about bomb shelters. They know about getting bombed. They know about how to be resilient. And you heard Trump's comments about, destroying a civilization. There's been a couple times where the Persians have been destroyed, Alexander the Great, and then there's a big Arab invasion, and then the Turks. But every time they come back.
Yeah.
Every time.
I think what I know of President Trump, and when I hear him talk to us, like we're going to bomb them back to the Stone Ages. Now, I'm literally speaking for him, and I have no right to do that, of what I believe that he's saying. And when he says we're going to destroy this civilization, I actually think President Trump is not concerned about what everybody else thinks right now. He's literally talking to the regime. And he's telling the regime of what he's willing to do. I don't think he means he's really going to kill civilians. I don't think he means he's going to be taking out civilian apartment buildings and these kinds of things. What he's talking to is the regime, says this is going to be the end. But here's the reality, and I think you'd agree with this, Doc. You can't threaten death or to murder someone who's about to commit suicide. They're not going to care. If they're going to commit suicide, they don't care if you're going to murder them or not.
Or you can't really scare very courageous people. And remember, the history of the Persians, they're very courageous. So a threat from Trump to them is they're just laughing at it.
Remember, there is a difference between the Iranian people, who I think are desperate for freedom. I had somebody desperate for freedom. I had somebody on the program last night that said he is talking to people inside Iran that are okay with the bombing, that almost to your credit, that they're used to this. They've lived out about, they'll wait it out, and they want freedom and a new regime. And so the regime and the people are two totally separate things.
Well, I mean, right now, they're reliant on the regime to try to protect them. So remember, don't forget the regime is not only controlling whatever they have in anti-aircraft fire, they're controlling the bomb shelters, the movement of people. So, they're dependent on them. So, sure, there's going to be some dissenters. But as a general rule, war unifies those who are attacked. I mean, just in World War II, when the Allies were attacked, they didn't splinter, they actually unified.
And if you speak out, we know what the regime will do to you, as we saw that poor wrestler, which was just absolutely horrible. Anyway, I thought it was a fascinating conversation. I'm always interested in your opinion because I have such great respect for you and your thought process on things, Doc. Real quick, before I ask you about this new cancer study, we mentioned briefly the spike protein. I thought it would be good. Where is my spike detox? Oh, here it is. To bring up the spike detox and really the reason of why people should be taking this. Could you give me a little rundown of this product?
Right. So when we acquire the virus or the vaccine, we get loaded with these little spines on the surface of the virus. It's a spike protein. They get in the human body. They stay there for years. They cause these long COVID syndromes and symptoms and make people generally feel unwell. We have to clear it out with the ultimate spike detox. And that needs to go for a year or longer. It will dissolve the spike protein. Human enzymes can't break it down, but these natural enzymes can, and other, supportive ingredients. So ultimate spike detox is evidence-backed and shown in the peer-reviewed studies to play that role. So it's critical. You don't want to walk around with a lot of spike protein, even if you don't have any symptoms, Grant, because believe it or not, spike protein may lower our resistance to cancer.
So it can lower the resistance to cancer. That's the immune response, I would take it, right?
Right. So if you form a cancer cell, your body can actually snuff it out. We have an immune surveillance system. But if that system is reduced, it's like a force field. If it's reduced, a cancer can form and it can take off like wildfire. And that's what we call a turbo cancer.
Wow. Okay. So folks, twc.health/grant. use the promo code GRANT, and we really have seen an explosion of turbo cancers, which is frightening to me. And I push this all back, I think, again, to the spike protein as well. twc.health/grant. Use that promo code GRANT for 10% off. All right, Doc, before I let you go, because I know you're a very busy guy, this study, we talked about it briefly last week with Dr. Thorpe. Ivermectin and mebendazole. Now, the wellness company has a parasite cleanse that uses ivermectin and mebendazole. Coincidentally, the exact same formulation that the wellness company offers for that parasite cleanse was the exact formulation used in the study. Am I correct?
That's true. So, ivermectin and mebendazole is FDA approved to treat neglected parasite infections. And so that's what you do when you get that product from the wellness company. You check in with a doctor. Patients with cancer can elect to actually, based on the existing scientific information, say, I want to use that for cancer. And that's the group that we studied.
All right. And the benefits were, I mean, almost beyond belief, 84% benefit, a positive benefit.
Now, so let me kind of lay this out. It's preliminary, and it's what's called patient-reported outcomes. This is what the patients told us. So they're all cancer patients. They're all engaged with their cancer centers. Most of them are getting scans every 3 months. These are patients who had the most common cancer was prostate in man, breast in a woman, and then lung cancer. And then after that, much smaller fractions. So mainly the solid organ cancers. They had, background chemotherapy, radiation, surgery. So they go on ivermectin and mebendazole, just under 200 patients, and they fill out all the information. I'll go with safety first. The rate of side effects with mebendazole and ivermectin is about 25%. So just to be fair, it can be some GI intolerances, some other symptoms. So
but nothing serious. I mean, no one likes GI intolerance.
Nothing serious, but it goes to show you it's a realistic study. When you,
right.
Anytime you say there's no side effects,
right.
you have to understand this is a real study. There was 84% net clinical benefit. Now that breaks down to 36% said that their disease stayed the same. 48% said that their cancer actually improved, that there was reduction in the tumor volume or some other marker of resolution or improvement, and then 15% of patients actually worsened. So the overall for cancer, that's a really good number. There are a lot of cancer protocols where patients just get a smidgen of improvement. Here with ivermectin and mebendazole, either one tablet a day and then under doctor's directions. So for instance, in my practice, I have patients take one twice a day. Boy, there's a big benefit.
Well, I just think it's great news. How important is it that we really double down on the study of this now? You've got this preliminary study, shows so promising. And I'm sure this is the last thing Big Pharma wants to see, because I think if you start curing cancer, you start having benefits like this, well, there's no money in curing it. There's only money in treating it.
Oh, boy. And, on top of that, Grant, there's what's called perverse incentives. The cancer centers do what's called book and bill. So the cancer centers administer the chemotherapy, and they take a cut of the revenue. So the cancer centers are incentivized to use very expensive chemotherapy, even if it's not that effective, because of the percentage profit. So what needs to happen is the National Cancer Institute and Dr. Jay Bhattacharya is over the whole NIH. They need to do a large prospective, double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled trial. Take wellness company formulation or another one and test it in these solid organ cancers. And just, we're talking like 20,000 patients in each arm. We need a big-time randomized trial. The other thing that needs to happen is our cancer centers need to be incentivized, and this is where Dr. Oz comes in, to actually incentivize them to use affordable generic medications, even in their off-label application. It can't just all be expensive chemo.
Yeah. Is there any hope or future of a study like that happening?
There is. There is now studies that we can see. Johns Hopkins has one with mebendazole, and I've been tracking it. It's interesting. out of the gate, they're using 500, 1,000, and 1,500 milligrams. So with the wellness company product, that would be 2 capsules a day at the minimum. So I saw that. And then Cedars, UCLA, has an ivermectin protocol for patients a little deeper into breast cancer. But you're going to see more protocol, standard National Cancer Institutes or Cancer Cooperative protocols. But this is good enough and safe enough. I think they should just go all the way to the big trial.
Yeah, just go try it. It's I don't know. It's amazing to me that, remember, we were called nutcases, heretics, losers, didn't know what we're talking about, ivermectin, and now you're talking about Cedars and Johns Hopkins and all of these big, all of a sudden ivermectin, it's not just horse drugs anymore, and they're really trying this out. It's a tribute to what I think you, the wellness company, and all of us in this movement have been doing to raise awareness. Last word, Doc.
Well, we're so proud of our patients who took the effort to report all the baseline information, assiduously report what happened through it. We're going to continue to track. We've got a great team at the Wellness Company. The Wellness Company is in so many ways is Make America Healthy Again. We actually embody that entire moniker. We hope our government agencies can catch up to us.
Yeah, I hope so too. Well, Dr. Peter McCullough, it's always great talking to you. I appreciate I never know where the conversation is going to lead with you, and I always enjoy every single one of them. I appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you.